Hello, my name is Will Miller, and welcome to BCIS 1305. I'll be your instructor for this semester. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I have been an instructor for over 20 years. 10 of it I've been with TCC teaching BCIS 1305 and COSC 1301 as an adjunct instructor. Most of that time I was teaching face-to-face at the Trinity campus. The last 3 years I've had the privilege of teaching online courses through Connects. So let's go on and let's talk a little bit about the course. First of all, I'm not going to read everything to you. You guys can read the course objectives and course descriptions just as well as I can say them. Just be aware that some of the outcomes have changed since last year. It hasn't changed a great deal. Most of it is that the state went in and streamlined it. One thing that I want to talk about is Office 2019 for Windows or Mac. Be aware that historically, Macintosh and Office hasn't worked well together, at least in this class using SimNet. But with that said, the individual, the McGraw-Hill, who makes SimNet, has said that they have corrected those issues, so it should work now. However, with that said, as we move into Access, if you start having difficulties, you might want to go to a computer laboratory or borrow a Windows machine and try to go ahead and complete the Access assignments using Windows. So, moving on to how the course is done. Well, the course is done. This is one of the big changes from last year, is that we used to use 2 extra websites in addition to Blackboard. Now we've just got it down to Blackboard and 1 extra website, which is really wonderful because the website that we use is called SimNet. You may have used it in another class, you may not have, but it really does do wonderful for what we're doing here. SimNet, let me just go in order here. SimNet lessons, what they do is they provide kind of like a simulated environment to work within Word, Excel, Access, and PowerPoint. It's set up to where it's going to show you like a little video tutorial, and then it's going to guide you through some problems. It's going to ask you a problem, but it's going to give you hints along the way on how to complete the question or complete the assignment, and then it's going to let you try. And out of all those 3, like it might have 1 task it's showing you, 1 task it's guiding you, and then it's going to do a let me try, which is like, okay, now you go out and do it. Of those 3, the only one you have to complete for the grade is the let me try. So just be aware of that. And once you get in it, you'll understand it. I never have any questions about how that works because it's very nice, and honestly, it hits pretty much everybody's where they're at in Office. So if you use Office every day and you know, say, Word really well, you're not ever going to have a problem knowing how to save a document. But if you've never used Word, saving a document could be difficult. So you might want to do the show me, guide me, and let me try. But if you've used Word every day, then you probably just need to go to let me try and do it. So the SimNet lessons provide that base of understanding. So you'll want to do those first, and then you'll want to move on to the SimNet projects. Okay, so let's talk about SimNet projects. What projects do is it allows you to actually work in the application of Word, Excel, Access, and PowerPoint. So to do this, it's going to allow you to go in and download both the instruction file and a starter file. It's very, very important that you download the starter files they provide because it has a key in there that says, yes, that really is for, let's say your name's John Smith. It really is for John Smith. If you upload somebody else's file as your own, then the system sees that as, hey, this wasn't the file I gave you, so this is what we're going to call a sharing violation or an integrity issue, and I get that report, and you don't want that. So anyway, also be aware that you get 2 chances to complete this laboratory assignment. After the first time you've uploaded it, it's going to give you a grade, and then it's also going to give you a report back of where you messed up at. So that way you can go back in the second time and only change the things that you messed up on. And then it's going to allow you to re-upload that, and then those 2 grades get averaged into one another. So let's say you did horribly the first time and made a 50, you come back and make say 100, and those are going to average together to be a 75. Now what you don't want to do is think, oh well, I'm going to just upload a blank document so I can see how it's done, and then you go and you do what it's asking for exactly, and you make, say, 90 on it. Well, those two grades are going to average together. 90 plus 0 divided by 2 is a 45, so you've still failed. Please don't do that. In addition to this, you can hand in, this is the only thing that you can hand in late is the SimNet project. So you can't hand in SimNet lessons or anything else in the course late, but you can hand in the projects late. So if you are running behind on something, this is the one thing that I'll let you turn in late, but there is a penalty, and it's not necessarily a fun penalty, so you don't want to get these very often. You can hand it in late for a 40% penalty, and I'll take those all the way up until the end of the semester. So let's talk about the Sim book. I mentioned some things changing. One of the things that changed was how we deliver the concepts. The concepts used to be delivered on a whole different website called Connects, using LearnSmart. We don't do that anymore. Now we're still sticking with SimNet, and we're using something called a Sim book. And the Sim book is basically going to have you do a lot of the same things that SimNet lessons did. It's going to have you reading, and then it's going to ask you a question, and it's going to have some different mechanisms in there to help you. If it sees that you're doing poorly, it's going to help bring you up. So that's kind of neat. You will get a grade off of the LMTs or the Let Me Try, so be aware of that. So let's talk about discussions. You've probably done discussions in your other courses, but in this course, and probably in your other courses, it's really part of the Connects mentality that we want to provide at least a semblance of what it would be like to have a face-to-face course. And in a face-to-face course, you would have educated discussions going on within a course, within the classroom. And that's what we want to have in the online environment. We want to have discourse. One of the things that we can do, though, is we can make sure that it's an educated discourse. We can make sure that you've actually had a little bit of time to think about it, and you guys can talk to one another on a more even playing field. So what we ask is, or what I ask, is that you make an initial post, and this is before you read anyone else's post. You make the initial post no later than the Wednesday before the discussion is due. And the reason why I ask that is because it gives everybody time enough to do your responses. So, and you're supposed to do 2 responses. So, in addition, make sure that your post isn't overly brief. Make sure that it's at least 2 paragraphs. If it's less than 2 paragraphs, you haven't actually dived deep enough into the topic. If it's too long, if it's like 2 or 3 pages, then you're not doing exactly, you're not summarizing well enough. So make sure that you're hitting that happy medium. In addition to that, make sure whenever you respond to your classmates that you are not overly brief, and that again you're going deep enough. A simple answer like "I agreed with that" doesn't really cut it. Make sure that you're moving the conversation forward. Those 1-sentence answers normally won't give you any credit at all for the discussions. Okay, so the final exam, please be aware that the final exam is normally given the last 3 days before I have to put grades in. So I ask for the final exam to be done normally finished at 6 p.m. in the afternoon. And just be aware that typically the next day I have to have grades input, and there's no time to turn things in late. So there's no late exams allowed, period, whenever it comes to the final exam. The final exam will have 60 questions on it. It'll cover both the BCIS Concepts book, the Sim book, along with the Microsoft Office applications. Typically a week or 2 before the finals, I'll have a review put out there so you can study and so that you can review on how to answer the questions as well. Let's go on down to the late work policy, and I've already talked to you a little bit about late work, but this is the big one. The only things that you can turn in late is the projects. Everything else has to be turned in on time. If you don't, then a score of 0 will be assessed, and I won't revisit that at all. Communication plan. The big thing with communication is do not get frustrated. If you start yourself getting frustrated, skip right down here to where it says, contact me. But I still want you to contact me in a certain manner, depending on what it is. If you're having problems with how to work out a problem using Excel, or Office or whatever it is, if it's something you have to show me, please use the product or a product like Screencast-O-Matic and record like what I'm doing, what's going on my screen. So that way, whenever you send it to me, I don't want to fix the problem for you. I want to tell you how to fix the problem yourself. Otherwise, I'm not actually teaching you. I'm just doing it for you. Now, I will say though, in general, you should still follow these steps. Don't just, oh, I'm having a little bit of a problem. I want to just contact the professor or the instructor. Don't do that. I mean, you can because you're frustrated, but if you're not frustrated, go ahead and go through the motions and try to find the answers out. If it's about how the course works, go to the syllabus. Another great place is go to the FAQs, which are located right down here. Look through those. The next thing that I want you to try is looking through the videos that I've posted. I will have several videos that I have out here that'll kind of show you how the course itself works. For instance, this is one of them, but I'll also have a video it's kind of a generic video on how to use SimNet. I'll have just several generic videos out there throughout the semester that'll help you in one form or another. So make sure that you've reviewed those whenever I send those. If it's an academic nature, please review your text. If it's something like, I don't understand where the RAM goes in the computer, we'll go back in the text in the Sim book and look where it talks about RAM. If it's one of the Office products, because you have to sit there, let's just say that you're having problems with Access, because Access does cause students some issues. It really does. You might want to just block off about 4 hours or 5 hours and go visit one of the campus laboratories. That's why they're there. They're there to help you. Now, they're not going to sit right next to you and walk you through every single step, but at least then, whenever you get to a step and you can't move any further forward, you can ask them to come over and they will help you with that. Okay, and then finally, if you still can't find an answer, then it's time to email me. But again, feel free to email me if you start feeling yourself getting frustrated, because the last thing I want is you to get frustrated. All it's going to do is make you mad, and ultimately, you're probably going to give me kind of a poor evaluation. So, please feel free to email me anytime you need. Announcements. I send out announcements pretty regularly in the course via Blackboard. Make sure you're checking your email. Make sure you're checking the announcement sections. Computer laboratories, again, I mentioned this earlier. There is computer laboratories in each one of the campuses. Call up, look on the website. I'll probably have on the actual syllabus, right here on the syllabus is where I'm planning on putting a link to where you can find all that information. I just haven't gotten it out there because I'm having to rebuild my syllabus. The student accessibility resources. Any student with a documented disability needing academic accommodation is required to contact the Student Accessibility Resources SAR office located on each campus to schedule an appointment with the coordinator of SAR. All discussions are confidential because SAR accommodations may require early planning and are not provided retroactively. Students are encouraged to contact SAR as early in the semester as possible. SAR is responsible for approving and coordinating all disability-related services. TCC professors will honor requests for accommodations when they are issued by SAR. So, again, I'm not going to read everything to you guys. I'll just skip past that one. Course assessments. Student success is measured by a variety of assessment techniques aligned with course goals and learning outcomes. You guys can read that. One of the big things that I want to make sure you know is that if you're jumping back and forth between, or if you go from Blackboard to SimNet and you're doing several things in SimNet, which you can, and then you jump back into Blackboard or you get out of SimNet altogether, just realize it might take some time for your grade to sync back to Blackboard. In fact, sometimes it won't do it until after I hit the refresh sync, and I just do that periodically about every week or two. So just be aware of that. I always do it right before the grades are due anyway, just to make sure that it's caught. But SimNet and Blackboard, they talk to one another, but it's like anything related to technology. If it doesn't do it exactly the way, if you don't do something exactly the way it expects you to, and what it expects you to do is use the link in Blackboard for that assignment, go to SimNet, and then come directly back to Blackboard, and then it'll bring that grade with it. If you don't do it exactly like that, then it might take a day or two. It's supposed to sync every night, but I say a day or two just to give it a little bit of leeway. And even then, sometimes, like if you log directly into SimNet, which don't do that, because then it won't sync back to Blackboard unless I tell it to go back in there and sync back. So just be aware of that. So the categories for each one of the assignments are either going to be in concepts, which include the sim book and discussions, lessons, projects, or final exams. And you can see they're all set up to be worth 25%. I think you guys can see the percentage for each letter grade is kind of standardized, A, B, C, or D, or F. This is a TCC Plus course, so bundles were sold with the registration of this course unless you opted out. You would know if you opted out. If you did opt out, then you'll have to be getting your own materials. I really hope no one opted out because that can be kind of a pain. TCC really has come up with a really good plan here and has a really good price on the course bundles. So just be aware of that. Special instructions. The student is expected to complete all assignments on time and turn them in for grading. Refer to the TCC catalog for a discussion of attendance, final exams, and withdrawals. The last day to withdraw from course is listed in the ICR, and make sure you understand that's not something I do, that's something you guys have to do. Scholastic dishonesty. If you cheat, it's not going to work out well for you. I've had 1 or 2 students along the last 10 years try to cheat. Both of them were really funny because they didn't even try to hide it. I had one student on Facebook, taking a final exam, and I thought, wow. Anyway, so just don't cheat. Mandatory attendance policy. So the gist of this, it goes like this. I really do pay attention to attendance. Whenever you reach the 15% level of being gone, I'm going to drop you. And I don't really need to tell you I'm going to drop you. You're just going to get dropped. So just be aware of that. 15% on an 8-week course is like 6 days. And, what does that look like if it's an online course? Well, it really looks like this. If you've went 2 weeks or even a week and a half without logging in or without keeping up with your work on SimNet or without keeping your discussions up, then you're really not doing well in the course, number one. And number two, you're not participating. So when that happens, I'm gonna go ahead and drop you as a student. So let's go on. I'm gonna let you guys read through that on your own. I've thought about the way these words are, and I don't want to say something that I haven't thought about whenever I'm just talking. So in case of technical difficulty, please call the help desk. They will really be able to help you. Now, finally, frequently asked questions. Go through these. If you have any questions at all and it's not here, please email me. Every semester I go through and I pull out some of them because they're no longer maybe the product's not used or maybe it's no longer an issue. But then somebody will email me something and I say, ooh, that's a great question. And I'll go ahead and put it back in there. So please email me if you have a question. Okay, so there are probably a couple of more videos that you'll need to watch. It should be located under this one. Just go in order, and thank you very much.